My best friend was being photographed by her mom's creepy new boyfriend who called himself a professional. She tried to pretend it was innocent and didn't affect her until she discovered where these photos were going. So together, we arranged a shoot of our own that would be his final exhibition. In 11th grade, my best friend started coming to school with clothes from Urban Outfitters and Brandy Melville. These were brands neither me, her, or any other girl in our friend group could afford. So we immediately hounded her for answers. "Oh, my mom got a new boyfriend and he's trying to win me over," she told us. I laughed because I myself knew what that felt like. Milk him dry. One of our other friends laughed. We never brought it up again until a week later when she came into school with a suspiciously bright smile on her face. It's not like Jane was necessarily a negative person, but she was definitely very introverted. I honestly thought she had gotten a boyfriend. Even her skin was clearer. But I didn't want to embarrass her in front of the group. So after school, I lightheartedly asked if she was seeing someone. Her face automatically turned super red. "Please don't ask me that again," she said. Her tone was warning, cold, very unlike Jane. Over the next few days, I started to pay very close attention to her. And one day she had a Pandora charm bracelet filled with the charms badly hidden under her sleeve. Well, her family's income was around the same as mine, so it didn't make any sense. And a lot of our friends were getting into shoplifting, so I figured she was just doing the same. "So, you're a little kleptomaniac now, huh?" I asked her one day while laughing. Her face went red like before, but instead of embarrassment, it was anger. "I told you to stop saying stuff like that to me," she said before getting up and walking away. When I got home, I noticed I had lost a follower on Instagram, and my instincts told me to check if it was Jane, and it was. And remember how I said me and Jane were best friends? Well, we were. We've worn each other's undies and borrowed each other's socks. One time when she came on holiday with my family, there was only one bathroom, so I showered while she brushed her teeth, and neither of us even felt uncomfortable. She was practically like my sister. So unfollowing me was a very big red flag, and it was clear she wasn't going to tell me the truth. So instead of being a normal, patient friend, I showed up to her house with a plate of $3 cookies wrapped in tin foil and pretended like I had made them for her. A man I didn't recognize opened the door. He had a camera around his neck and was wearing all black. Behind him, Jane was in the living room wearing a school uniform I'd never seen before. Knee-high socks, a pleated skirt, and her hair in pigtails. There were professional lighting setups everywhere. My heart went cold, and she instantly grabbed a robe to cover herself. "Hey!" I yelled over enthusiastically, trying to compensate for the tension that had formed. "Just wanted to drop these off. Hope y'all enjoy." I then hopped in my car and drove as fast as I could around the corner. My best friend was being exploited in ways I couldn't fully understand. What are you even supposed to do in these situations? I could go to the police, but technically nothing illegal was happening. So I called our friend Emily. She was the only one I could trust who would see the situation as actually dangerous, instead of some juicy gossip. Plus, she was the type of friend who somehow always knew what to do. And this time was no different. She said we need to help Jane understand she's being manipulated. Well, at the end of the month, Emily was due to present a project in class about internet safety. She told me to trust her and try to win Jane's trust back in the meantime, so I did. The next day at school, Jane was super tense, and I could tell she was waiting to see if I'd bring it up. After she realized I wasn't, she acted warm to me. It was like old times. From there, I noticed that she stopped trying to hide her ever-growing collection of bougie jewelry, that she started being really protective of her phone and would panic if anyone tried to look at it. It felt like Emily's presentation couldn't have come soon enough. She started off with cyberbullying and sharing passwords, so I had no idea where it was going, until she got to online exploitation. She dedicated an entire slide to how predators recruit minors for modeling that starts innocent but escalates, how they specifically target girls from struggling families, promise huge payouts, and slowly normalize increasingly uncomfortable requests, how they use the boyfriend of mom cover story to have access to their victims' homes. It was perfect because not only did the entire class gasp in disgust, but the teacher even chimed in to say how these operations work in legal gray areas but destroy young lives. The entire time I watched Jane like a hawk. I saw her slowly become more uncomfortable, bouncing her leg up and down super fast and biting all her fingernails off. I knew things were getting really good when she asked to go to the bathroom and ran off crying, because I knew it was for her own good. But as soon as lunch started, I got the text. Jane was spamming me, asking me to meet her in the bathroom. I found her clutching her legs to her stomach in the cubicle. Her face was completely red and she couldn't even breathe. "Michaela, I stroked her hair, waiting for her to finally blurt it out. "He's been selling my photos to men online. Thousands of them." My jaw dropped. I hugged her super tight. "But that's not even it," she whispered. "Some of the men have been messaging me directly. They know my real name, what school I go to. He gave them my information. They're offering to pay me directly to meet them in person." Full story on channel, linked below. While Jane hyperventilated in the bathroom stall, her phone buzzed with another message offering $500 to meet at the mall. At the same time, the photographer texted Jane demanding she come home immediately. I grabbed Jane's phone and saw dozens of messages from different numbers with meeting locations around town. Jane whispered that the photographer monitors her phone and will know she showed someone. One message mentioned seeing Jane at school yesterday. Emily burst into the bathroom, having noticed our absence. Jane instinctively showed her the messages before remembering the photographer's threats about telling anyone. Emily's face went pale as she recognized the grooming pattern from research she did for her presentation. The school secretary knocked, saying Jane's stepfather called and insists she needs to come home for a family emergency. Jane went pale, knowing its punishment for the bathroom breakdown. I made a split-second decision to claim Jane was violently ill, and I was taking her to the nurse, buying us time while Emily created a distraction in the hallway. The security camera in the hallway would show our lie. In the nurse's office, Jane received rapid-fire texts from the photographer with screenshots proving he could see her phone activity, including the open messages she just showed me. Emily returned, having overheard teachers discussing Jane's modeling. Apparently, the photographer had been showing other school parents Jane's professional portfolio at community events. I discovered the photographer installed tracking apps on Jane's phone when Jane tried to delete the messages and got a warning about parental controls. The app showed he was currently at Jane's house. Jane's mom texted asking why she left school, revealing the photographer already called her at work, spinning a story about Jane having an episode and attacking him. Emily's older brother Marcus, who works at the phone store, texted Emily that a man matching the photographer's description was just there asking about recovering deleted inappropriate photos from a teenager's phone. Hidden in Jane's backpack, I found a USB drive. Jane tearfully admitted contains the tame photos the photographer makes her carry for portfolio reviews. The drive was labeled insurance. The photographer's car appeared in the school parking lot, and through the nurse's window, we watched him charm the principal's secretary while holding a manila envelope marked with Jane's name. At Emily's house after school, Jane's mom called my mom claiming Jane was going through a rebellious phase and asking her to encourage me to give Jane space. Emily found online photography forums where the photographer posted about working with difficult teen models and asking for advice on maintaining control over the creative process. The responses were disturbing. The photographer posted on the neighborhood Facebook group about his student photography program, including a photo of Jane, face obscured, as an example of his artistic portraits. My mom mentioned the photographer offered to do free family portraits for church directory, and several families already signed up their daughters for practice sessions. Jane revealed the photographer convinced her mom that Jane's friends are jealous of her success and trying to sabotage her modeling career. Her mom now screens Jane's calls. Emily created a fake Instagram account and discovered the photographer follows hundreds of teenage girls' accounts, commenting on their photos with professional photography offers. While researching, I noticed the photographer's current website links to an older archived portfolio site with different city locations listed. He rebrands for each new hunting ground. Jane's mom showed up at Emily's house demanding Jane come home, but Emily's mom noticed bruising on Jane's wrists and insisted on girl talk over tea first. Jane's mom's hands shook as she texted. Through the kitchen window, we spotted the photographer sitting in his car outside, and Jane's mom's demeanor immediately shifted to nervous compliance. Emily's mom, a nurse, gently pressed Jane's mom about the relationship. Jane's mom admitted he sometimes gets angry, but insisted he's helping Jane's future. Emily's brother Marcus arrived and created a distraction by discussing tech problems while I copied important files from Jane's phone to Emily's laptop. One folder was labeled with just dates. The photographer texted Jane's mom that he was getting impatient, and she abruptly stood to leave, but Emily's dad blocked the door, saying his car was blocking theirs. While the adults managed the parking situation, Jane whispered that other girls from mom's gym have mentioned the photographer approaching them about portfolio work. The morning arrived with Jane showing up at school accompanied by the photographer. He insisted on walking her to class, his hand firmly on her shoulder while making pointed eye contact with me. The visitor badge clipped to his shirt gave him legitimate access to roam the halls. Jane kept her eyes down, clutching her books against her chest as other students stared at the strange man escorting her. During lunch, I spotted him in deep conversation with a yearbook advisor near the photography lab. His hands moved animatedly as he discussed volunteering his professional services for school photos. The yearbook advisor nodded enthusiastically, clearly impressed by his portfolio samples spread across the table between them. Emily pulled me aside after gym class. Mrs. Rodriguez had just spoken with her privately about concerning marks she'd noticed on Jane's back while the girls were changing. The gym teacher had discreetly taken photos for documentation, her face grave as she explained the patterns didn't look accidental. Emily's hands trembled as she relayed this information. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Jane's mom had contacted her claiming the photographer was considering legal action for defamation based on rumors we were supposedly spreading. My mom's messages grew increasingly concerned, questioning what exactly I'd been saying about Jane's family situation. Marcus met us after school with a USB drive containing a program that could reveal hidden files. We huddled in Emily's room as the software scanned Jane's drive. Contracts with website names appeared on screen alongside payment records showing regular deposits. The amounts made my stomach turn. Hundreds of dollars per photo set, thousands per month. I attempted to show the USB contents to our school counselor the next day. She listened with growing alarm before immediately reaching for her phone to call Jane's parents for a meeting about these concerning accusations. I realized too late that this would only alert the photographer to our evidence gathering. Catherine, a friend's older sister studying psychology at the local college, recognized the exploitation patterns when Emily desperately explained our situation. She taught us how to document everything safely while supporting Jane without triggering the photographer's paranoia. Her emphasis on avoiding direct confrontation frustrated me, but she insisted our priority was Jane's safety. While the photographer attended the parent meeting at school, we searched social media using reverse image searches. An old profile from another town surfaced, showing photos of a teenage girl who looked eerily similar to Jane. Same poses, same style of dress, same dead look in her eyes. The account had been inactive for 2 years. We tracked the girl through Instagram tags and old comments. Her name was Amber, and she lived 3 hours away. Emily sent careful messages from her fake account, explaining we were trying to help a friend in a similar situation. Hours passed before Amber agreed to a video chat, her initial messages full of suspicion and fear. Amber's voice shook during our call as she described the identical pattern, expensive gifts that started small professional photo shoots in her home, the website she discovered by accident when using his laptop. Her mom had refused to believe her, choosing the relationship over her daughter's safety. She'd never told anyone else before us. Jane's frantic texts interrupted our call. The photographer was demanding she come home immediately for an emergency photo session with a special client visiting that night. Her messages grew increasingly panicked as he threatened consequences for her defiance at school. Amber's face went white when we described Jane's situation. She revealed she'd kept screenshots of the website before it went offline, showing pages of photos being sold to anonymous buyers. She pulled them up on her phone. Jane's photos were on the same platform platform with identical formatting. The prices had tripled from what Amber remembered. I drove to Jane's house despite Emily begging me not to go alone. The photographer answered the door wearing a silk robe, classical music playing loudly from upstairs. He informed me Jane was working and couldn't be disturbed. A man's voice drifted down from the second floor, followed by the click of camera shutters. He leaned against the doorframe, studying me with calculating eyes. He reached into his robe pocket and pulled out $200 bills, suggesting I leave and forget what I thought I knew. He claimed Jane was mature enough to make her own choices about her future. The money trembled in his extended hand. Emily's parents arrived just as I stepped back from the door. They announced they were picking up Jane for a study group, their voices firm and carrying across the yard. The photographer's mask of calm shattered as he snarled that Jane wasn't going anywhere, his face contorted with rage. The special client emerged at the top of the stairs, nervously adjusting his tie while asking about the commotion. He gave his name as Mr. Johnson, but Jane appeared behind him, mouthing that it was fake. His fidgeting and darting eyes suggested someone with a history of avoiding law enforcement. Jane stood at the top of the stairs in a cocktail dress and heavy makeup that made her look older. She robotically stated she was fine and we should leave, but her eyes blinked rapidly in the SOS pattern we'd used as kids during boring family dinners. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. Emily's mom pushed past the photographer, insisting on speaking to Jane's mom. The woman emerged from the bedroom in lingerie and a sheer robe, demanding everyone leave her home business alone. The words hung in the air as their meaning sank in. She knew exactly what was happening and was profiting from it. Emily thought quickly, pulling out her phone to live stream on Instagram. She narrated what was happening: the strange man upstairs, Jane's SOS signal, her mother's admission. The photographer lunged forward and knocked the phone from her hand, stomping on it repeatedly. But the video had already uploaded to her story. Jane bolted down the stairs during the chaos, running past everyone to lock herself in my car. The photographer followed, screaming that she was ruining everything he'd built. Her mom stood in the doorway begging Jane to come back inside, promising they could work things out if she'd just do this one session. Emily's parents made the decision to take Jane with us rather than wait for police who'd proven useless in the past. The photographer threatened to sue for kidnapping as we drove away, his shouts echoing down the street. Jane curled into a ball in the back seat, her whole body shaking. At Emily's house, Jane broke down completely. Between sobs, she revealed her mom received a percentage of all payments. Bank statements on Jane's phone showed regular transfers labeled as household expenses. Her mom had been encouraging increasingly explicit photos to pay off mounting credit card debt. Marcus analyzed the metadata from Jane's photos while she showered and changed into borrowed clothes. The GPS data revealed they'd been taken in multiple locations: hotels across town, empty houses for sale, rental properties. Timestamps showed many were taken during school hours when Jane was supposedly at doctor appointments. Jane's mom arrived with a man claiming to be the photographer's lawyer, though his cheap suit and nervous demeanor suggested otherwise. They demanded Jane return home immediately, or they'd report Emily's family for kidnapping. The man fumbled with legal terms, clearly out of his depth. Several parents from the neighborhood Facebook group began arriving at Emily's house. They'd seen the live stream and wanted explanations about the photography program they'd signed their daughters up for. 3 families had sessions scheduled for the coming week, their faces pale with realization. Dr. Chen, a local therapist, arrived after Emily's parents called her. While she couldn't formally intervene without proper channels, her presence made the fake lawyer back down from his immediate threats. She spoke quietly with Jane, assessing her emotional state and immediate needs. The photographer had followed Jane's mom, emerging from his car to face the growing crowd of parents. He claimed Jane was lying for attention and produced contracts that Jane's mom had signed giving consent for artistic photography. His hands shook as he waved the papers at the assembled group. One parent, Catherine, worked as a paralegal and immediately pointed out the contracts were legally worthless for a minor. She mentioned her husband was a prosecutor who specialized in exploitation cases. The photographer's face went pale at this information, his confident facade cracking. Jane's mom turned on her daughter, hysterically accusing Jane of seducing her boyfriend and ruining their relationship. She screamed about the house they'd lose and the bills that would go unpaid. Parents recorded everything on their phones, documenting her priorities for potential legal proceedings. Amber's mom joined our video call on Emily's new phone, finally ready to tell her story after seeing the live stream. She confirmed the photographer's pattern and revealed his real name, something he'd hidden from his new victims. She'd kept quiet out of shame, but couldn't let another girl suffer. The photographer retreated to his car when he realized the crowd was growing and unified against him. Jane's mom remained outside, screaming at everyone that they'd ruined her life. She wailed about losing the house without his financial support, seemingly oblivious to what she'd put her daughter through. We watched him lock the doors and make frantic phone calls. The paralegal mom took charge, organizing the parents to ensure none of their daughters would ever be alone with the photographer. They created a phone tree and neighborhood watch specifically to monitor his movements. Group texts flew as parents shared information and coordinated their response. Jane's mom attempted to guilt her daughter through text messages, sending photos of eviction notices and past due bills. Emily's mom blocked the number after showing Jane it wasn't her responsibility to pay for her mother's choices. She held Jane as fresh tears fell. The yearbook advisor called Emily's house to report the photographer had returned to school demanding his visitor badge back. Security had to escort him out when he became belligerent, shouting about his property at Jane's house. He'd specifically mentioned equipment he needed to retrieve immediately. Parents from the gym began sharing stories in the group chat about inappropriate comments the photographer had made about their teenage daughters. They realized they'd all dismissed the same red flags: the lingering looks, the business cards pressed into young hands, the offers of free portfolio shoots. Marcus used EXIF data from both Jane and Amber's photos to create a map showing the photographer's movement patterns between victims. The visualization revealed a clear hunting pattern, with clusters of activity in specific neighborhoods before moving on to new areas. Jane suddenly remembered the photographer mentioning twin sisters who were scheduled to visit that evening. She She recalled him showing particular excitement about this session, saying it would bring premium prices. The realization that other girls were in immediate danger spurred the group to action. The Neighborhood Watch reported unusual activity at Jane's house as darkness fell. Several cars arrived despite the photographer supposedly being alone. License plates were photographed and shared in the group chat as parents maintained surveillance from safe distances. Jane revealed the photographer kept a client book hidden in the house with names, preferences, and contact information for all the buyers. She described its location, inside a locked filing cabinet in his makeshift office. The book contained years of transactions and client details. Rather than involve police who'd been dismissive of previous reports, the parents decided to document everyone arriving at the house. They positioned themselves strategically to photograph faces and license plates while being ready to intervene if any young girls appeared. 3 cars arrived within the first hour. Jane's mom sent increasingly desperate texts begging Jane to do just one more session to help with the bills. The messages revealed her complete complicity as she promised Jane could keep a higher percentage this time. Everyone present saw the texts, their faces hardening with disgust. The prosecutor husband began building a case file from home using all the evidence the group had gathered. He focused on federal charges rather than local ones, explaining that crossing state lines with exploitation material carried serious penalties. His experience with these cases gave the group hope. Emily's dad joined other fathers in confronting men arriving at Jane's house. They photographed faces and license plates while informing visitors they were being watched and documented. Most fled immediately when faced with organized opposition instead of a vulnerable teenager. The photographer emerged onto the porch threatening to call police on the parents for harassment. He seemed unaware that the group was hoping he'd invite legal scrutiny. His bravado faltered when he saw how many people were watching his house, their phones ready to record any interaction. Jane found courage she didn't know she possessed. She composed a text to the photographer stating she had copies of everything: photos, contracts, client information. She threatened to send it all to every parent at school unless he left town immediately. Her hands shook, but her resolve was firm. The photographer's attempts to maintain control crumbled as more parents arrived. Jane's mom finally witnessed other families protecting their daughters from the man she'd welcomed into their home. Reality began breaking through her denial as she saw the fear in other mothers' eyes. The parent network strengthened throughout the night, creating plans to support Jane and help other families recognize predator tactics. They shared resources about warning signs and grooming behaviors. The community response transformed from shock to organized action. Dr. Chen connected Jane with a trauma specialist who worked pro bono with exploitation victims. The referral came with assurances of complete confidentiality and a trauma-informed approach. Jane's healing journey could begin with proper professional support. Using the photographer's real name from Amber's mom, parents discovered through social media that he'd fled previous communities after similar accusations. News archives revealed a pattern spanning years and multiple states. The evidence of his repeated predatory behavior became undeniable. Jane began receiving messages from other girls who'd seen Emily's live stream before it was deleted. They shared their own encounters with photographers at malls and modeling scouts at schools. Jane realized she could help others by sharing her story, finding strength in solidarity. Amber and her mom drove down the next morning to meet Jane in person. The moment they saw each other in Emily's living room, both girls collapsed into each other's arms, their bodies shaking with recognition of shared trauma. Amber's mom held Jane's hands while explaining how she'd failed to protect her daughter, tears streaming down her face as she apologized for what Jane was experiencing. The community rallied around Jane's situation, organizing meal deliveries and offering financial assistance. But they made it conditional. Jane's mom had to agree to intensive therapy and acknowledge her role in enabling the exploitation. She refused at first, storming away from Emily's house while screaming about betrayal and abandonment. Jane needed to retrieve essential belongings from her house, so a group of parents accompanied her for safety. While packing her room, she noticed something odd about her ceiling fan. Hidden among the blades was a tiny camera, its red light barely visible. The parents searched more thoroughly and discovered 3 additional cameras: in her bathroom vent, behind her dresser mirror, and inside her closet light fixture. The parent group presented their accumulated evidence to the prosecutor that evening. He reviewed the contracts, bank statements, photos, metadata, and witness statements while taking detailed notes. His expression grew increasingly grim as he explained that federal charges were possible, given the interstate nature of the operation, but warned the legal process would move slowly and required Jane's testimony. Late that night, a neighbor's security footage revealed something shocking. The photographer had never actually left Jane's house after the confrontation. Motion sensors showed movement in the attic space above Jane's room. He'd been hiding there the entire time, listening to every conversation and plan. The photographer emerged from his hiding spot around 3 a.m., frantically packing computer equipment and external hard drives into duffel bags. Jane's mom pretended to sleep on the couch, too terrified to move as he gathered his materials. Security cameras captured him loading everything into his car before speeding away. Jane remembered during a therapy session that the photographer had mentioned a storage unit where he kept his archives. Several messages from buyers had referenced accessing the full collection through a separate arrangement. The realization that years of material from multiple victims existed somewhere made everyone's blood run cold. Without the physical evidence from the house, the prosecutor explained their case had weakened significantly. Jane felt the crushing weight of potentially facing her abuser in court with only her word against his. She spent hours staring at her phone, considering whether to give up the fight entirely. Instead of surrendering, Jane made a different choice. She created a detailed post about her experience, carefully avoiding names but describing the grooming process, the warning signs she'd missed, and how predators operated. She shared it in local community groups and teen safety forums. The post spread rapidly through local social media networks. Within hours, Jane's inbox filled with messages from other girls describing eerily similar encounters, photographers approaching them at malls, modeling scouts at schools, online offers for portfolio development. The pattern was undeniable and widespread. The photographer, still hiding somewhere in town and running out of options, made a critical error. He contacted Jane directly through a burner phone, offering her $5,000 to delete her posts and remain silent. His desperation had overcome his usual caution. Jane agreed to meet him at the mall food court, choosing the most public location possible. She arrived surrounded by Emily's family and several other parents who positioned themselves at nearby tables. Hidden recording devices captured every moment as she sat across from him. During their conversation, the photographer's mask completely slipped. He admitted to operating in 5 different cities over the past decade, insisted Jane was special compared to other girls, and claimed he genuinely cared about her. His delusions poured out as he tried to manipulate her one final time. Jane's mom appeared unexpectedly, having followed the photographer to the mall. She watched from behind a pillar as he offered to work with younger girls if Jane would just help him relocate peacefully. The words finally shattered her denial as she witnessed exactly what kind of monster she'd invited into their lives. Jane pushed the envelope of money back across the table, her hands steady despite her racing heart. She told him she'd rather struggle financially forever than enable him to hurt another girl. Emily's phone, hidden in her purse, recorded his entire confession. The photographer's composure shattered completely. He grabbed Jane's wrist, his fingers digging in as he hissed threats about what would happen if she didn't comply. Jane's mom finally acted on maternal instinct, rushing forward to throw her coffee in his face while screaming for security. Mall security responded immediately as multiple parents identified the photographer as the man who'd been soliciting their daughters online. They detained him while calling real police, keeping him secured as more evidence of his activities emerged. Officers searching his car discovered multiple backup drives he'd been attempting to smuggle out of town. The drives contained the full client database he thought was safely hidden, hundreds of names, contact information, and transaction records spanning years. Jane stood in the mall's security office, surrounded by the people who'd fought for her when systems failed. Her mom approached tentatively, finally offering the apology Jane deserved. She admitted her complicity and agreed to whatever Jane needed for healing. The photographer's final manipulation attempt fell flat when he claimed Jane had pursued him. Amber's testimony via video call, combined with the mountain of evidence, revealed his practiced pattern. Federal agents took over the case, ensuring he couldn't simply flee to another state. Jane's mom signed temporary guardianship papers, allowing Jane to stay with Emily's family while she entered intensive therapy. The arrangement gave both of them space to process the trauma and begin rebuilding their relationship on healthier terms. The community transformed their crisis response into permanent change. They established a support network for exploited youth, with Jane and Amber serving as peer counselors. Their lived experience helped other victims feel understood and believed. Federal prosecutors built their case methodically, using the interstate trafficking evidence to ensure serious charges. The photographer faced decades in prison, unable to relocate and restart his predatory pattern elsewhere. 6 months later, Jane spoke at her school's graduation ceremony. She stood before her classmates not as the girl hiding bruises under designer clothes, but as a survivor who'd found her voice. The photographer sat in federal prison awaiting trial, her relationship with her mom slowly healing through family therapy, surrounded by the friends who'd refused to give up on her. Her story reached other vulnerable girls through Amber's newly established nonprofit organization, proving that while predators counted on silence and isolation, they couldn't survive when communities chose courage over comfort. The designer clothes had long been donated, replaced by the confidence that came from knowing she'd helped protect others from experiencing her pain.